Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
And my name is Jeff.
And we are going to answer your questions today. But first, I have a question for you, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
How are you doing today?
I've been waiting all week for you to ask me that.
A few days extra, in fact.
Yeah, that's true.
We are not recording this on our normal day.
It's been a very wintry week.
Yes.
So it's like we had a bunch of snow early in the week on our normal recording day. And both like yesterday and today have been frigid.
Oh boy, it's been like negative 15 degrees, not including wind chill. It's negative 15 degrees Fahrenheit. And then
I'm sure as most of you probably know, like even those of you not in the Midwest of the US, like you at least probably have heard something about like there's the
polar vortex
dipping down again. And
oh goodness, yeah.
It's getting real cold. And then it's going to be like, it was like wind chill was like negative 40.
Yeah. And apparently in like 2 days from recording,
it's going to be like
50 degrees above zero.
Right. Exactly. So it's like, yeah, okay. All right.
It's ridiculous. Yep. Yeah. So yeah, the day we were going to normally record, there was too much snow. Yeah. So, I guess you left work early because of all the snow.
Right. Yeah. But it was
we didn't want to be driving anywhere. So.
Yeah. But plus my car's not super great. Like it can do the roads fine, but trying to find parking in deep snow, I would have gotten stuck for like an hour. It would have been awful.
And I, spoiler, I had not shoveled our driveway that day yet.
Neither had I. Like I had to I tried getting up my driveway and kept sliding back down. Yeah. And then so I parked along the road and then cleared my driveway and still struggled up, it was, it's awful.
Yeah. But then we were lucky because I ended up going home early from work yesterday because there's a gas shortage.
Yeah. We were lucky because there was an explosion.
Yeah.
in our region's gas provider.
Yeah.
Had a huge fire or explosion or something at their plant or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so they're dipping into reserves and things to heat everybody's homes. And so everybody's got to turn down their thermostats. And one of the things, some of the major, major companies,
major manufacturers shut down.
They were like, well, we use a lot of gas, so we might as well shut down for a couple days, just to, ease everybody's struggle.
Yeah. So we went home early yesterday and we were off completely today.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping we're still off tomorrow. Fingers crossed. We'll see. I'm not counting on it, but that would be cool. Yeah. That'd be cool getting 2.5 days off in the middle of my 4-day week.
Sure.
So anyway, we'll see what happens. But so we had an extra day. Figured might as well, go ahead and record. Yeah. So yeah, that's why we're here today. Not that it's going to make any difference to our listeners.
Yeah, we're still on our regular schedule, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, for us it's different.
Right.
It's a special day. For us only.
Yes. Oh my goodness, it's so cold. We went out to eat with Lisa's parents a couple hours ago, and it basically just down at the end of the street as we were eating, and it was so cold.
Yeah.
Just getting down there was awful. Anyway, speaking of cold, I wanted to talk for a moment about my brother's game, The Mountain Witch.
Oh right.
I say speaking of cold, kind of as a joke, but also because it takes place on a snowy mountain.
Sure.
But so I actually little spoiler here. I recorded a much longer blurb about this last week, but then it ended up being completely invalidated by something I'll get to in a moment. So I cut it out of the episode.
Okay.
So for anybody who has been following my brother's game, The Mountain Witch, it had a Kickstarter several months ago. I had a couple listeners tell that they backed the Kickstarter on my recommendation because, I had talked up this game quite a bit. I've talked about it,
it's a fun game,
a lot over the years. And it turned into a little bit of a fiasco for a little while. The Kickstarter itself went very, very well. It went way over its goal. And the game was actually set to release in December. It is currently, when we recorded this, the last day of January. So the game is not out yet. Not only that, but my brother went a very long time without updating the Kickstarter at all, several months, to the point where a lot of people were very understandably upset.
Yeah, one of which reached out to you.
One of which reached out to me, found me on Facebook and sent me a message hey, just want to make sure, is everything okay? Do you know anything about it or whatever?
Right.
I did get in contact with my brother about it around Thanksgiving time because, it had been, even at that point, it had been a few months since he had updated. And the word I got from him wasn't that anything was wrong. It's just he's been swamped with that and also stuff in his personal life and everything. And so whether he was justified in doing so or not, he just hadn't updated in a long time.
Sure.
And, you know, I didn't really get on his case about it. I don't really think it's any of my business. You know, it's his thing. He can do whatever he wants. At the time of this recording, he has finally updated it. Again, it's like way after the thing should have even been released.
Sure.
So I totally understand if anybody is upset about that. There were people that like reported him on Kickstarter because he had gone so long without an update.
Sure.
No judgment from me. Hey, if that's what you felt justified doing, by all means do it. It is one of my pet peeves when a game developer does not communicate with their customers.
Right.
So I'm in no way am I trying to make anybody feel bad about being upset about this. If you're upset, you know, hey, you have every reason to be upset.
Sure.
But anyway, I do want to apologize if there was anybody who backed the game on my recommendation and they are disappointed by the lack of updates. I do apologize. You know, I don't know what I could have done to get it going, but whatever the case, he has updated. He has promised to try and update at least once a month until it is out. It's, you know, it's already late. It's going to be even more late. Whether that's an expectation of Kickstarter or not, you know, I'm not going to tell anybody what they should think, but just, you know, thank you for sticking with it so far. If you have, again, I do apologize if you feel upset because of my recommendation. You know, if you feel upset, reach out to me and I will apologize more personally. I don't know what else you want me to do. But anyway, I just wanted to mention it because it's been weighing on my mind for a while. I said, we did record a much longer thing about it last week, but then I realized that my brother had already by that point updated it. So a lot of what I was saying was kind of pointless. So anyway, just again, thank you for sticking with it. Thank you for, you know, checking it out on my behalf. I apologize if you were upset, and hopefully it comes out soon. Hopefully it's great.
So yeah, the first version of the game was very fun. So there's, you know, I mean, obviously people liked it because enough people backed it to reach the goal. So
sure, like because he's my brother, I was never worried that it wasn't going to come out. But you know, not everybody is his brother, I guess.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. So you know,
I mean, he's not the first person to be slow on the response with this kind of stuff. He won't be the last, but
sure. But it does suck.
Yeah.
So I just want to stress, if you're upset, I totally understand.
Yeah.
You have no reason to feel guilty about, even if you did report him to Kickstarter or whatever, no reason to be upset. You do what you got to do. You know, just if you are still sticking with it, please be patient and thank you for checking it out.
Yeah.
You know, anyway, so enough of that. Do you want to go ahead and jump into this episode?
Sure.
Okay. So Jeff, I want you to imagine that it is a Tuesday afternoon, is the third Tuesday of the month.
Okay.
And you have the day off of work.
Okay.
So you figured, you know, I am going to run over to my local library. I heard that they have a game of D&D going.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'm going to swing up there. I'm going to play this game. It's going to be a lot of fun. And, you know, have a great time. So you head up there and you remember, oh, yeah, there's that really cool dungeon master who always shows up to do the game. You show up and you're expecting to see him. He's got his, you know, you're expecting to see him with that white shirt with the red sleeves, and
right? Yeah,
the goofy hairdo and whatever. And you get there, and he's not there. Instead, you see someone that is especially tall. Now the usual guy is pretty tall too, but this one is maybe 30 feet tall.
Sure,
with not red sleeves, but he's got like red scales.
Okay.
And every time he talks, like a little bit of fire shoots out. And
great, yep.
You're not quite sure, you know, this is somebody else, but hey, it's still a D&D game going on. And you notice there's a sign by the door where there is, not that they ever charge for this, but there is a little, if you want to give a donation, there's like a little bin where you can give a donation to the library fund. And you notice that some people have already tossed in, like there's like a crown, there's a sword that is like sparking with electricity, so maybe it's magical. Somebody tossed in just a bag of gold with a little dollar sign on it. And so, you know, you pull out a magic item, you toss it in there, and then you sit down at the table and there's a few other people there. One guy's wearing armor, another guy has like a staff and a long beard and such. And the dungeon master comes over and he says, he tells everybody, "Welcome to this game. Do you know where this adventure begins?"
Where's that?
In the dragon's hoard. Oh, I forgot to mention, the normal guy has a class that day, so he had to reschedule. So he couldn't be there, but he got someone to fill in for him.
Right.
Which is actually a real thing. So
right. You have to.
This past game at the library, I wasn't able to do because I have this class for my work that it conflicted with the previous one. It's going to conflict with the coming month as well.
That's too bad.
Yeah. So I got somebody else to fill in for me this coming one, but after that I'll be back on. So the guy I got, he's about 30 feet tall.
Right, I was going to
red scales.
So you got a dragon to replace him.
So today's item was submitted by Noah Wizard on the Discord.
Yeah.
And this item is the Shield of the Interrupting Paladin. And I've taken some liberties, Noah, with the some of the text for this item. So on the shield is an inscription that says, "With this shield, even a squire can now protect people, but only a true paladin knows that to truly protect someone, you have to live long enough to shield them more than one time." So this magic item is a shield. It's a magical shield that anyone can use regardless of proficiency. Mm-hmm. And while you have it equipped, it allows you to use your reaction to force disadvantage on an attack adjacent to you, just like the defense fighting style ability. However, if the attack hits the original target's AC after applying disadvantage, the damage is dealt to the shield bearer instead, even if it would not have hit the shield bearer's AC.
Huh.
So let's say, you're the paladin or whatever you are, you're walking around with this, 22 AC or whatever, and this magic shield, and you see that the party wizard is about to get hit by an attack. You can impose disadvantage, which might make the attack miss. However, if the attack still hits, let's say they get the wizard's AC is like 15. Let's say they roll a 16 after disadvantage.
Right.
That now hits you instead. It does still protect the wizard from taking any damage. However, it makes you a little bit easier to hit as well.
Okay.
Because this was sort of presented a bit as a curse.
I think the way he was like describing it was like it's like you're able to use protection, but you're not quite as proficient with it, so you're going to end up hurting yourself or something like that.
Sure.
So that's pretty cool because imposing disadvantage as a reaction is
it
really
good. It's a really good ability.
Yeah, like the fighting style by itself is great.
Yeah. On the Discord, because this was just posted on there, JLSim85 responded to it, and he said he feels like the Interrupting Paladin Shield could easily be cursed or sentient and tries to get the PCs not to do bad things.
Sure.
So like if you wanted to, maybe you could make this thing intelligent and it can speak.
Yeah.
And when the party's gonna, I don't know, sneak into the warlord's tower and attack him in his sleep, the shield is like loudly saying, "Whoa, you shouldn't do that.
That's not honorable.
That's not honorable." Exactly.
Right. Yeah, because like when you think of a cursed item or an intelligent, like a cursed intelligent item, it's usually going to be like, it's a thing that's going to possess them and make them do evil things.
Sure.
No, but what about the opposite, where it's like, no, it's a good thing, but it does it in a it does it at an inopportune time like that.
Jeff, what exactly determines whether something is a curse or a feature?
Right.
Because is
it only based on the character's alignment or
maybe.
Well, isn't there like a thing with cursed items that like maybe it's not the case in 5th edition, or maybe it was never the case, but I know in some video games if it's a cursed item you can't remove it.
That was a feature for some cursed items in D&D. I know like in older editions that was a common.
Yeah, it's like you put feature, on a thing, it does something bad, but you can't take it off until you get remove curse cast on you.
Well, so I guess there is something tangible that constitutes a curse.
Yeah.
But who's to say that there couldn't be curses that are only viewed as a curse because they do something that you don't want them to do?
Right.
Similarly, because you know a lot about plants, right?
Sure.
Like what exactly constitutes a weed?
Right, yeah.
Is a weed actually a specific type of thing, or is a weed just a plant that you don't want? Similarly, I'm wondering, what if there was a curse that is only a curse because it's something that a like chaotic neutral character would hate?
Right.
Whereas a lawful neutral or lawful good character would be like, "Oh, that's the greatest thing ever. Oh, this thing announces whenever I do something illegal." For a person who wants to do a bunch of illegal stuff, yeah, that's a terrible curse.
Yeah.
But then for someone who wants to uphold the law and wants to be a good person.
You'd be like, oh, thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, thanks. I thought I didn't realize I was about to break the law. I will not toss that garbage on the ground. I'll toss it in the easily found waste receptacle.
He can get a job as a lawyer or something.
Sure.
It's just like having a cursed item is like it depends. It's like subjective. It depends on the person's perspective.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah, and then, but because there's not as much of a mechanical thing anymore.
Yeah.
Other than magical effects that are against your will is basically it.
Yeah.
Magical effects against your will can be interpreted as cursed in basically any way.
I remember in 3rd edition, there was even, there were all sorts of different curses you could get just out of the book that were it glows a garish color and it's very noticeable.
Yeah.
Is that really a curse?
Yeah, it's just sort of
what if you like having a big old pink axe? There might be a market for that.
Right, yeah.
I worked in a hospital where one of the nurses proudly told everybody that she just bought a pink gun.
Great.
There you go. Sorry, lady, that's a cursed weapon.
That's a cursed weapon. Yeah, you can't.
I don't know. Anyway, it just got me thinking, if it was trying to get the PCs to not do bad things, is that a curse?
Right.
I don't know.
That's a good question. You should submit it to a podcast.
I should. Gosh, man, I could be such a cool person if I just submitted that to a podcast.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, I mean, there isn't really much else to the item. It's a neat item. It does something that's really cool and lets you do it. It's normally a class ability, but it lets you do it just as anybody.
Right.
However, does have the potential downside where you might take the damage instead of the other person.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a good thing, though.
In the right hands, that's a great thing.
Yeah.
In the wrong hands, which can happen because it's you don't need the proficiency to wield the shield.
Sure.
So if you're a class that doesn't normally have proficiency of shields, you're usually not a more melee combat oriented class in most cases.
I just had a great idea for this, Jeff.
Yeah.
Okay, here's what you do.
Okay.
You're in battle. The bad guy has a super high AC. You toss him the shield, and then you attack his lackey that has a much lower AC. And then he'll instinctively try to block it. Oh no, you hit the 13 AC for the lackey, and now the 25 AC guy just got hit.
Right.
I just found a way to weaponize a shield, Jeff.
Sure. Here, catch and attune yourself to this.
Well, it doesn't say you have to be attuned to it.
But it also is it's a reaction. He doesn't have to take the reaction.
Well, yeah, I guess that's a good point.
Right.
I was going to say, what if you threw it into the Tarrasque's mouth?
What?
He's still got the shield. He can use it even if he's not proficient in it. I don't know.
Oh my goodness.
All right, I think I'm getting too into the weeds here. Also, I brought up the Tarrasque. All right, that'll do it for...
No, you've awoken the Tarrasque.
No. I've done it. That'll do it for the... I've done it again. Sorry. Excuse me. That'll do it for the Dragon's Horde today. So once again, that was the Shield of the Interrupting Paladin submitted by Noah Wizard via Discord. So Jeff, if anybody wanted to submit Dragon's Horde items for us, or questions for us to discuss, or stories for the funeral pyre, how would they get those to us?
They could send us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com.
There you go.
Yeah, you should send in your question there.
Oh, maybe I should. We get a question from the coolest guy in the world at
gmail.com. I think that's taken.
It's probably taken. There's a small little thing. I don't know how many of these we will ever get, but hey, if anybody ever wants to send Dragon's Horde intros to me, you can.
Oh, sure, yeah.
People on the Discord were clamoring for a way to submit Dragon's Horde intros, so we have a little page on the Discord for anybody who wants to submit those.
Yeah, I forgot I added that one in.
Yeah, so I don't know if anybody would ever want to submit one, but if you want to, send it to interpartyconflict@gmail.com.
Because there are some weeks where Gabe's in a panic trying to think, what am I going to do for the Dragon's Horde?
Yeah, the days where they've been particularly bad have probably been those days.
You could probably mark those ones,
I guess. Yeah. So send us any questions or items and such you have. I also want to mention that our show is brought to you by our wonderful patrons. Patreon is a platform where you can pledge to donate a small amount of money per month to our show. And, you could give us $1 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month, anything in between, anything above, whatever you want. And if you do, not only will you be helping the show, you'll also be getting bonus content for it.
Yeah.
So we've got outtakes on there. We've got bonus episodes. We've got fantasy fiction that I write. I actually just finished our fantasy fiction for January as of this recording, and I think it turned out really good.
Cool.
Noah Wizard has been helping every month when I do my fantasy fiction. Noah Wizard, he reads it over. He gives me line by line critiques, and he does so much work just to make sure that the thing that I wrote ends up being the best it can possibly be. I'm
Sure.
his help is invaluable. I don't know if his Fiverr page is still up.
Yeah.
But
I'm not sure if it's still going.
He had one for a while if it's not still up, but and I know the guys from Adventures in Aurelia hired him to help with some of their writing as well.
Uh-huh.
And seriously, he is an amazing editor.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I cannot talk him up enough. So if anybody is interested in editing work,
right? Yeah, if you're doing any sort of story creation, world building or anything, he's amazing. He's an amazing editor.
Yes, he's amazing. He's an amazing person to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah.
As well. So I mean, he's not paying us to talk about him or anything.
No,
but
yeah.
I mean, he's done so much work for me for free that I feel like I should.
Yeah. No. Yeah. He's a good buddy of ours, and we respect his work very much.
Yes, absolutely. Anyway, so I was talking about our Patreon. We've got lots of cool stuff on there. Check that out if you want to help out the show and get some cool stuff in return for it. I'm considering putting up the first episode of our actual play on there as just for all of our patrons if they want to listen to it, because I do want to get people's opinions on the first episode.
Sure.
So I don't necessarily want to put it out there for general consumption.
Right. So put it up there as
just on the $1 tier or something.
Sure. Just to as a little bonus. You get to hear it early and get some feedback so we can make sure the rest of them are good.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you are interested in hearing it's not completely done editing. I haven't put, it's just us playing. It doesn't have any music or an intro or outro or anything. But
right.
If anybody is interested in listening to that, maybe become a patron, I guess.
Sure.
Go on there and just check and make sure that I'll put a thing on there saying that it is, if it's up there.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway. So yeah, that's our Patreon. Patreon.com/InterPartyConflict is where you can go to check out the rewards and see if anything appeals to you. I also want to, I forgot. We're doing a giveaway today.
Oh yeah.
We do a giveaway every week. I forgot about it this week. Sorry. I guess I almost forgot about it. So we are giving away a copy of Chapel on the Cliffs from Goblinstone. It's a great low-level 5th edition D&D adventure for a group of, I guess, 5 PCs, I think is the 5 or 6 PCs is the standard.
Yeah.
So it's a great adventure. It's got some spooky stuff to it. And it's from Goblinstone. They're a great content creator. So Jeff, today, who is our winner?
Our winner this week is Connor S.
Whoa, winner. Gobble. Yes, congratulations, Connor S. You should be getting that within the next couple days. If you don't, let us know, and we'll make sure that we get that out to you as soon as possible.
Yep.
All right, and also everybody go check out the other podcasts on the Crit Nation Fellowship. Check out Crit Academy at critacademy.com. They are a great podcast where Justin, Ian, and Brandon create new and reusable content for players and DMs alike. We've got D&D Character Lab, where Garen and Dan make D&D characters and then pit them against each other and debate whose baby is better. And then we have the newcomers. Brute Force and Ignorance is an actual play coming from some D&D players on either side of the Atlantic, I think. I know one or two of them are from America, and then the others are from either Britain or Australia. I can never tell which, and if they listen to this, I deeply apologize.
Sorry.
But I've listened to all their episodes. They're great. So I've finished all their episodes. I'm up to date. And yeah, it's a lot of fun podcast to listen to. I think they've got some really cool stuff in there.
Cool.
And yeah, I'm glad that they joined the fellowship, and I hope that they are able to be very successful.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Sweet.
Anyway, Jeff, enough of all that. Do you want to jump into the rest of this episode? Do you want to jump into some questions?
Yeah.
Cool.
Our first question comes from, and I believe it's pronounced Einar.
If it is not, I apologize. I did try to find out how his name is pronounced, and I wasn't able to get a conclusive answer. So I believe it's Einar.
It might be Anar. I'm sorry.
I don't know. Sorry.
Sorry. We tried. This was through email. How can I steer my PCs into making characters based on historical or mythological characters while still giving them free will to make the characters how they want?
So I think there was a little bit of context for this, and the idea was that Einar wanted to create a homebrew campaign based on Norse mythology, where the players are ordinary people living on an island called Asgard. And then they're not gods, they're just normal people, but the exploits throughout the campaign eventually get retold as the legends of the Norse gods. So basically the players' characters later become known as the Norse gods in legend.
Okay.
And so the question is, how do you engineer something like that while still giving the players freedom to do what they want?
Right. Well, yeah, because you can really kind of railroad them into it, and as long as you're like upfront about it and they're cool with it, go for it.
Yeah, it's going to be a tricky thing to do without heavy railroading. I guess is the thing. Now, we've said in the past, railroading is only a bad thing if, number one, the players are not on board, and number two, the players realize it.
Right.
Now, them realizing it, you can in theory do this without the players realizing it if you're like real good and real like you plan for everything.
Well, right. Although if you call the island Asgard,
true.
If you could call it something different, or or like do something where like it's Asgard, but it's spelled differently and pronounced differently or something like that.
Yeah.
Or like, cause like in like mythology and like history and stuff like that, things get mispronounced and mistranslated and stuff like that. So like, could be like, oh, it was actually, it was goblins backwards, like.
Right.
So I don't know. I feel like because the whole idea is that like the stories of the exploits of these characters is going to turn into them being these gods.
Yeah.
You can say that there was misrepresentation in like or like mistranslations and stuff like that. So like if the players don't do all the exact things you want them to do, say you want this one character to basically be Thor.
Yeah.
But they use a sword. They'd rather be using a sword instead.
Sure.
You could have it be that like, oh, okay, that was just somebody like mischiseled a mural.
Yeah.
Or something, or is a mural only painting, or is that?
I don't know.
They misrepresented. They were like drawing a big mural of the exploits of these characters, and a bit of it cracked off, so it looked like it was a hammer instead of a sword.
Sure.
Like something like that, where it's like yes, the players didn't do the exact things that you wanted them to, but you can still have the world interpret it that way.
Yeah.
Or but one of the cool things about like mythology and like I'm trying to think of like comic books and stuff like that, where there's like the series that like kind of do like a what if situation. Like what there was a time that like Dr. Doom got the hammer of Thor.
Okay.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like weird crap happens, like I think it's interesting when you take something like a mythology, like Norse mythology or something like that, and sort of turn it on its head and like, or you throw it at your players and see what happens, and you make your own, pantheon that way. Like it's your own interpretation of that mythology.
Well, the point I was trying to make earlier is that it's possible in theory, you could railroad the players and do a real good job and they won't realize it. However, I don't think that's quite realistic. It would be incredibly difficult to do that without them realizing it. So I guess there's probably two ways to do this. Kind of like what you were saying, let the players do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And then, maybe try at various points to do things to kind of steer them. Like, let's say the player who is Thor uses a sword instead. There could be a point where they get Mjolnir.
Yeah.
And like you could still give him a hammer, and then if it's good enough, he'll use that instead of the sword.
Right. Yeah. He's the fighter. He uses he uses a one-handed weapon or whatever. And, or, like he's got the stats for it.
Sure.
Yeah. Give him a hammer, like, it's like, okay, like, oh, here's this magical hammer. It's way better than your sword. You should use that.
Yeah.
And maybe he'll still keep his sword around for sentimental reasons. But like, if you give him a powerful enough hammer, like Mjolnir, they're going to use it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like it's like if you give the player a broken mechanic, they're gonna abuse it. So
right.
give them something. I mean, obviously you don't want things to be too powerful so that they, they just kind of walk through everything.
Sure.
But if you make it so it's like just broken enough that there's no reason not to use it, but it's not necessarily overpowered.
Yeah. Like you could still give them items that you think that the mythological characters in your mind would have, and also have them go on adventures that you think that are taken from legend. I'm blanking on what a lot of the actual Norse legends were, but I know there was like
Loki had a child with a horse.
There you go. Have an adventure where one of the players, I guess, has a child with a horse.
Odin's like 6-legged horse.
Oh yes, that is Sleipnir, I think.
That is Loki's child.
Oh dear.
Yeah. No, horse, not deer.
Oh. Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
But like, I know there was like, I think Thor killed all the giants or something like that. I don't know. You could take events from legend and then have the characters take on those same adventures. Like as the dungeon master, you do have control over the adventures they go on. I mean, at least to some extent. Yeah. Maybe a little bit of railroading will be needed in there. But I mean, as far as getting them to, assuming they go on the adventures that you throw at them, you can engineer that much so that maybe, if you look at the characters, they don't necessarily directly resemble Thor and Odin and all of them, but if you look at the big picture, well, they did this thing that Thor did. Odin did this thing that Odin did. The guy who plays as Odin has a raven or two, and then the guy who plays Thor has a hammer. Enough of the details will be there that you could feasibly say, over time this could evolve into the legends that, in the real world we have in Norse mythology. Yeah. So you could just treat them like they are the characters that you want them to be, even if they don't necessarily resemble them that way, in which case they can still play their character however they want. Or the other option is just be upfront with them and say, hey, I think it'd be cool if you guys were playing characters that then later their exploits evolve into the legends of the Norse gods. And that way, from the beginning, the players know, okay, well, I'm supposed to act kind of like how Thor would act. Yeah. Sure, I'll use that as maybe not exactly, I'm not going to act exactly like Thor, but I'll use that as a base and then I will build on it how they want. Then they don't have to feel bad about adding little flourishes because, they're allowed to add some flourishes and they know what the end goal is supposed to be.
Right. And I mean, like, because it's mythology, nobody knows what Thor is like because it's Thor. So, like, everyone's going to, like, the person who you say, your character is going to become Thor, or, like, you're the fighter, so that's what's going to happen. That person is going to play Thor the way that they think Thor would play.
Sure.
Like, like, if they were Thor that I guess didn't know that they were Thor at the time, like, is it that they were turning into those, or, like, was the character's name going to be Thor?
That's a good question. Well, so there's a sort of a 2.5 option for this, and that is... Don't necessarily tell the player, because I don't know from the question, I don't know whether Einar wanted the players to realize, I mean, like you said, the island is called Asgard. I don't know if this Dungeon Master wanted the players to realize that they were playing what would eventually be the Norse gods. But if you make characters ahead of time, maybe just like a loose character on a sheet and say, I want you guys to follow these archetypes. Mm-hmm. Here's a guy with a hammer. Here's a guy that has a spear and has ravens. I'm really, if it's not obvious, I'm really blanking on what other Norse characters there were and what their defining characteristics were. Of course, there's Loki and there's Frigga.
Frigga and
Freya. Are they two different people? I feel real bad now. I feel real ignorant.
I think so. I know Freya.
There was Sif
and Balder.
There you go. I just played God of War. Why am I blanking on Balder and
Fenrir?
Freya? Fenrir, sure.
Fenrir, but Fenrir was a giant wolf.
Does somebody get to play as Jormungandr?
What's that?
Does somebody get to play as Jormungandr, the giant world serpent? So, I mean, if you set out several archetypes, several like 75% finished characters and say, I want you guys to loosely stick to these. You can evolve it however you want, but like, I want you to start with this kind of a base. If I was a player and that was from the beginning, they just said, hey, I want you to do some variation of this character.
Yeah.
I would say, okay, that'd be fine with me. If you spring it on them later, or you try to force them into it, that's going to go more poorly than if you're upfront, you're like, hey, I want you to play this type of character.
Yeah.
Then, heck, half of the difficulty of making a character, in my experience, is coming up with, well, what class should I play? What archetype should I play? If someone just said, play this one, do whatever you want with it, but play this one.
Right.
I would feel so much better about the whole thing.
Sure.
I know I'm not everybody, but
sure.
Yeah.
I feel like if like somebody wanted me to play in the group and they were like, could you play this class? I'd be like, I can definitely find a way to enjoy that.
Sure.
Yeah. But I just feel like if you're not upfront with them about them, they're going to go a different way than you want them to go.
Definitely. Absolutely. If you want to give the player true freedom, that means that they're going to do things that you don't want them to do.
Right.
So, I mean, you either got to learn to deal with the choices they make, or just be upfront with them and say, I would like you to make this choice.
Right.
Or something like this choice.
Yeah. Because like what I was saying before was like, you got to adjust your end game to what the players are doing.
Yeah.
And you can kind of shoehorn a little bit here and there to make it seem like, okay, this was the Norse mythology thing. But otherwise, you do have to tell them up front, like, hey, you're going to be playing Thor. It's like, you maybe ask them like, what kind of characters you thinking about playing? And they're like, well, I want to be a warrior in like this, like a really strong warrior. I'm like, okay, how you feel about playing a character that eventually becomes Thor? Sure. That sounds cool. Or they might be like, nah, I'd rather do this, or like, I don't know. Yeah.
Now, what if you get to the end of the campaign and you've dealt with all of the choices the players have made. You made the best of all of them. And then the Norse legends end up being about how the mighty Thor defeated Loki with the aid of Bob.
I mean, so yeah, like if it doesn't end up exactly like the myths, that's fine. That becomes yours. Then.
Sure.
Like,
Sure. And
I don't know who owns Norse mythology. Like,
I don't think anybody does.
Right.
I'll take this opportunity to point anybody who is interested in doing something like this, point them towards the film Reroll, because I think that on a smaller scale, that is exactly what they are doing.
Sure.
They take movies which have a preset storyline, preset characters, and everything. They make character sheets for all the characters, deal them out to whoever, usually Paolo, the DM, but he's not always the DM, and I don't think he's always the person responsible for choosing who plays who. I'm actually not sure. But they deal out.
We should have him on and ask him about it.
We should. I'm actually going to try to see if I can have him on again this year. Him or somebody else from the film Reroll. But anyway, they deal them out to whoever they think will be most appropriate for that role. When Paolo was on, he described it as like casting a play,
right,
or a movie or whatever. Like you want this type of person to play this type of character. In that case, they start in the same way the movie started out, and generally speaking, the same events will take place. However, the players do have freedom to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
And even though a lot of the time they don't stick too closely to the movie, what they end with is something much more special than the movie. Because yes, they didn't do exactly what happened in Raiders of the Lost Ark, but instead they ended up with their own version of Raiders of the Lost Ark that had a completely different ending, and now they're interested in finding out what they could do in a sequel to their version of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, what happens next in this alternate,
exactly.
storyline.
So if you are interested in doing something like Einar was asking, try not... I would say my recommendation is, I would say do the thing where you start off with like, I want someone to play this type of character, someone to play this type of character, someone to play this type of character. But after that, give them the freedom to do what they want. And if it ends up going differently, which most probably will, now you've got your own more personal version of the Norse myth.
Yeah.
I think that's a really cool thing to do.
And then you store that and use that as like a pantheon for a future campaign.
There
or
you
something,
go. There you go.
Which, might be something similar to what they're doing.
Because, like, imagine how cool it's going to be for the player that played their version of Thor. If in a later campaign, someone else is like, hey, I want to play a character that worships our version of Thor.
Right.
That is a great feeling that you'd be giving to that to that player.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so I hope we made a little bit of sense. I think that's it's a great idea, and definitely got some great potential there.
For sure. Our next question comes from Lost Ranger 17 on Reddit. How many NPCs is too many?
Yes. And Two?
I don't know. No.
So this one similarly had some context, but I don't think I think it's a pretty universal question. Basically, like, let's say you're in a group where, in addition to the party, the DM there's a couple hirelings that are coming along. There's like possibly the DMPC. There's somebody else's sidekick, or there's all these other NPCs, and then maybe you're also fighting along with the captain of the guard, and so on and so on.
Or you gotta keep interacting with like the one of the, like, a quest giver or something like that. Something you're regularly talking to and things like that. As far as the DM is concerned, too many NPCs is however many more than you can handle.
Yeah.
That you can juggle names and what their purpose is, and who's got what, who has what items, and who has what roles to play, and who's giving out what quests, and who's backstabbing who, and like if you want this big intricate like political thing going on, like a Game of Thrones situation where you have like the the Seven Kingdoms, and everybody's trying to fight for this and the power over this and that. Like, you got a lot of things to juggle.
Well, I think in this question, they were specifically asking about like NPCs in the party.
Sure.
But I think that is also a great question.
Yeah.
Because that asks the question, like, when is the storyline getting too complicated?
Right.
Or too difficult to follow?
Yeah. And then you're trying to come in, like, a lot of people struggle with this. I know I do. Coming up with names.
Yeah.
Sometimes you create names that are similar to other names. There was one time I generated a name that ended up being exactly the same name as one of the players' characters. and I hadn't realized it because I had just like randomly generated, so I didn't sound it out in my head right away. I was like, okay, good, I got a name. It looks good enough. And then I went and looked at it. I'm like, crap. Like, it was spelled a little bit differently, but it's definitely the same name.
Yeah. So let's address the way you interpreted the question first.
Sure.
How many NPCs is too many? In general, I think kind of the simpler the story, the better. However, to some extent, I feel like the more NPCs there are, the more it feels like a real breathing world.
So like at as many, like, trying to keep as simple as possible at one time.
Yeah.
Like, you can have as many characters in your world as possible, and you can refer to them here and there, but like in any one adventure, maybe you don't want more than like 5, major characters or something.
Yeah. I think that's probably a good rule of thumb. It's really going to depend on you and your group, how much everybody's able to keep track of. But yeah, I would say something like per adventure, 5. Like, don't introduce more than 5 NPCs per adventure. That's probably going to be a bit too much.
Yeah, just because it's just you're gonna forget. Wait, who's the bad guy? Wait, who's the good guy? Wait, which one's helping us?
I think in that case, the more important thing is making sure that you have an easy way to instantly signify who it is you're talking about.
Sure.
If you just throw out 5 names, like, hey, here's Warsaw, here's Jalanthe, here's Xanadu, here's Ballymick, here's Nagano. And then you're like, okay, so you got those 5. I've already forgotten what all 5 of them are. If you just throw out those 5 names, the players are going to be like, okay, what?
See, but I think it's like, if you describe them physically, then have them do something.
Yeah.
It could be like, oh, he's that half orc that beat up that guy.
Sure. There you go. Or if you have like a very distinct voice for each of them. I mean, that's a lot of work coming up with 5 distinct voices, but like if you have a very distinct voice for them, or if you have like a particular way of like, you like tilt your head when you talk as one of them, or on Crit Academy, they recommended having physical props, having a physical prop for each NPC.
Hats.
If you have 5 hats, that will honestly, the players will immediately be able to tell who they are dealing with because of the visible hat that you put on when you become that character.
There's even like Noah's got one of these. It's a deck of cards, and it's got pictures of people's like little fantasy character faces on it.
Yes.
Like, and that way you could just kind of like draw a card and be like, he looks like this.
Yeah.
And then so when he's talking, hold up the cart.
Sure.
It's like, you can even bounce it around like it's talking.
Sure.
So put it on a popsicle stick and have it behind your DM screen and have it like talking,
I would say just don't.
Sock puppets. Ooh, sock puppets.
Sock puppet. I mean, that's
legit. I think that's a legitimate suggestion.
Well, when dealing with NPCs, I feel like
we need to start a sock puppet business.
You get started on that, Jeff, and I'll catch up with you. I just feel like anytime you have two NPCs talking to each other, something has gone wrong. I mean, it's going to happen. It's going to happen from time to time. But if you are not able to find a way to not ever, if you can make that never happen, you have succeeded as a DM.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Just.
Well, because at that point you're just going to be spelling out like exposition and stuff like that.
I guess pretty much.
Like you're really just spoon feeding them storyline at that point instead of letting them live the story.
Well, so I have a tip that applies to both NPCs in the campaign and also NPCs in combat.
Sure.
And I guess I'll actually come back to what the tip is in a second. I won't say what the tip is just yet. But let's now transition over to if you're in combat.
Right.
And like I did actually bring up the situation that Lost Ranger 17 described. And essentially the party is on a ship and then the ship gets like attacked or something like that. And now I guess they didn't get attacked. Whatever the case, the players and the ship's crew are all going to attack a bunch of pirates. And so combat involves the 4 PCs, the 7 named crew members, a few unnamed crew members, and all of the pirates.
Uh-huh.
At that point, I think several things have gone wrong.
Sure.
The DM, my issue with DMs using too many NPCs, because a lot of DMs do this. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the DM for doing this. Listening to Brute Force and Ignorance, one thing that I've noticed in that is that it seems like in every combat there are multiple NPCs. And it's just a difference in style. I'm not saying that anything is wrong with it. I personally always wonder why people do that. Because when I'm the DM, I already have so many things to keep track of.
Yeah.
I don't want to also have to keep track of a bunch of NPCs and all the monsters and so on.
Right.
So the solution that I have for both of these, for both whether you're doing the NPCs in combat or NPCs in the campaign, is pass them off to the PCs.
Okay.
Instead of having 7 friendly shipmates, have a few stat blocks written out, hand one of them out to each of the players. Now that player has their own character as well as a much simpler stat block for the first mate or the guy who's up in the crow's nest or whatever. So that each player is, number 1, sharing a bit of the workload.
Yeah.
And number 2, not feeling like they're just sitting around while the DM has a bunch of conversations with himself. And
if you put it in a way that like if the player characters are like, if they're like a hired party to go do this thing and the crew is there to like to move them to their adventure or whatever, you can have it be like maybe the crew in a way looks up to the party or is like, or there's some form of respect there.
Sure.
And so like you can have it, the NPCs that the characters are getting are kind of like, maybe they're being like their sidekicks in a way or something like that. Well, because like if you're controlling both an NPC and your character, like it's tempting to have them coordinate.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I have 2 characters now. I'm going to flank everybody.
I mean, yeah.
Why not?
Sure.
So maybe like the NPCs that you choose to give to those players.
Do something that fits well with their character.
Something that fits well with their character, or like maybe have them interact with those characters before or afterwards.
Sure.
So like maybe like so that the players are building a bond with these NPCs, so that like there's just a little bit of extra story there. Like after that fight, like, hey, good job. Like deckhand Joe, like good job. You did that whole sailor thing, and now you're doing the fighting thing. Proud of you.
And I was just thinking, like, if you don't necessarily want to do that in combat, you could even, in the case with like the whole bunch of ship hands and so on, you could just have it be that they are fighting their own fight on the side, and then the players are fighting the main bad guys here.
This kind of goes back to, I think, not our last episode, but the episode before that, where we talked about like
having like a battle with a whole bunch of enemies.
Right, exactly. Yep. So like treat the NPCs as like layer effects sort of thing. Like like the fight between the a bunch of the pirates and the crew is its own thing going on in the background.
Sure.
But it has effects. So like a thing happens where like the fight in the background, a cannon gets cut loose and starts rolling across the deck, and everybody's got to make a dex save to get out of the way or something like that.
Kind of like layer actions.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
In D&D.
Yeah. So like, layer, like have it be like layer actions, and maybe certain things that you do in the fight can turn it one way or another.
Sure.
So like, if your characters are, they take down the pirate leader, then maybe one of the layer effects will be more advantageous for the players.
Sure.
Or if like the opposite happens, if like the pirate leader manages to down one of the other players, like it might give the pirates morale, and they get, and something bad happens for the group or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, to put it less in the hands of like initiative and combat and stuff like that, and it's less to have to worry about. I feel like not having to like read everybody's, not having to keep track of everything's in initiative and hit points.
Oh
and
my
stuff
goodness,
like that.
I hate that so much. Now I was saying that you can pass off NPCs to players.
Yeah,
I said I easily express how you can do that in combat. You can, in theory, you can also do that with NPCs in like role-playing situations as well.
Okay.
And this is something that happens on the film reroll occasionally, and whenever it does, it's really cool. They recently did John Wick.
Okay.
Seen the movie John Wick?
I haven't seen it, but
You haven't? Oh, it's a good movie. Well, it's a movie. Keanu Reeves basically is this like ex-assassin that somebody kills his dog and steals his car, and so he goes on just a rampage. And he's an unstoppable force of nature, basically. And,
right. Yeah.
In the movie, it's just kind of him just going and gunning down all these people for an hour and a half, and it's in a good way. But when they did it for the film reroll, because John Wick is obviously so powerful, none of the players were John Wick. The players were the bad guys. But the thing is, the bad guys have so many more resources and have so many more people to call upon that there were times where, okay, the two main bad guys are safe in their safe house. So how can we still have some of the story going on? And for that, the guy running the game had the players take on other NPCs and then run those NPCs for a little while. And you may be thinking, oh, well, they've seen the movie, so they know how the characters played. Paolo was one of the players in that. He wasn't running the game. He had never seen John Wick. He purposely did not watch John Wick until after they were done running it. And so you could give the players just like a very short write-up. This is the character's name. This is their profession. Here's 3 words that describe their attitude, and this is their goal. So like if you're in a role-playing encounter, you hand the player the card for Vermilio, and then you write down he's the court jester, and he is foppish, goofy, and sinister, and his goal is to trick the king into having somebody executed or something like that. You can pass that to a player, and then in 10 words, they can get an idea of it. It's going to take a skilled player,
sure,
but they can get an idea for how to play that character. Mm. And as long as they stick to the goal that you gave them, you don't really have to worry about them, throwing the game off. And if they did, hey, they're still a player. The players can throw off the story if they want. If you're giving the players agency, whatever. So you can give a player just a very short write-up of what this NPC is like and have them play as the NPC. I think there was a time where in Justin from Crit Academy, there was a session where not everybody showed up. And so one of the players was like on trial for a murder or something. And so he wrote up a bunch of NPCs, just like short little blurbs, passed them out to the players, and then have the players be witnesses in court against the players.
Uh-huh.
And apparently it was a really, really great adventure because they all got into character for these NPCs, and, they took some liberties with it and they had a good time with it. So I guess this question isn't asking what should I do when there's too many NPCs, but I think that it's important to say what you should do with too many NPCs. And I say, give the NPCs to the players.
Yeah.
Save yourself all the trouble. Save the players having to sit there and listen to you talk to yourself for an hour. Just hand it off to the players.
Sock puppets.
Okay. If you feel like putting in the work, sock puppets.
Yeah.
As far as how many NPCs are too many, anything over the absolute minimum is too many, in my opinion.
Right.
If you can do the game with fewer NPCs, do it with fewer NPCs.
Yeah.
Just do it. Just cut out the NPCs.
Depends on how many socks you have.
There you go. Depends. All right. So
I don't know. I think I'm going somewhere with this sock puppet idea.
I'm not saying you're not.
I'm legitimately thinking like maybe having like a set of like character puppets or something wouldn't be the worst idea.
Workshop it and get back to me. We can talk about it in a future episode if you have some success.
Okay.
All right. So I hope our help there was helpful.
Sure, yeah.
You know,
I'm sure.
Anyway, so Lost Ranger 17. Hopefully that helps. You know,
it's a few ideas on like
because
it's however many you can handle.
Yeah.
But like less is going to be easier, so might as well make it easier on yourself. But if you want more, there's some ways to deal with that.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll do it for our regular questions for this week. However, we have our social media discussion questions. And last week's social media discussion question, we got just a few responses, but that's fine. We got the question was: your character has received a plot of land as a reward for finishing a quest. What do they do with it? Do you recall if you had an answer, Jeff?
Yeah. It was like a farm or a ranch or something like that. Like I like farming and ranching, at least in video games.
Sure.
I don't know if I have the stamina or motivation to actually do something like that in real life. But
me, definitely not.
But I always like the idea of it. So
sure. I don't recall if I had an answer because I don't really, all these questions that I'm like, your character has done blah, blah, blah. I don't really know if I myself have a character because the few games that I have played, I've been running.
Sure.
But I would say in general, I think make a hideout.
Yeah.
Like make a base.
Yeah. Base of operations for the party. I always like the idea of like, if you like be more like think of like a JRPG where there's just like tons of characters to play and like you pick your party and that sort of thing. Like if you made a hideout and eventually like you hire on other characters and those characters can become PCs that you can like swap in and out.
Oh yeah. Like I do really like that.
Like if you feel like playing a wizard today, hey, you got a wizard that works at your base. Why not have him go on this adventure and your fighter can stay and do some training with the hirelings or something.
Sure. Over on Facebook, we got a few responses. Nathan H says, answering on behalf of one of my players, nothing. I gave his character several acres of land and he was like, oh, cool, I'll do something with that sometime. 8 months later, he still did nothing and his PC just died.
It becomes a forest.
I like to think that somehow his character died as a result of not doing anything with that land. Like, I think the inflection I gave it was probably what he intended, but his PC just died. I think is another way to put it. Sure. What should I do with this land? I don't know.
Oh, God.
David says, I'm all about awarding players with land and or developing a headquarters for a party. In my current game, the players will soon be granted a large plot of land. Maybe spoilers, Jeff.
Oh, sorry.
Basically enough for a small village with farms and everything. I developed a whole system for building, managing, improving, benefiting from, and protecting the land. I'm so excited to get to that point. It's going to serve as a base of operations where the NPCs they've helped in their adventures can live and work. We're providing unique benefits to the party. Additionally, the players will be allowed to create at least one alternate character that they can switch to between adventures. Like you were saying, Jeff. Whoa. Letting the primary character rest, heal, work, train, etc., while the alternate goes adventuring with the party.
Sweet.
So did you steal his idea, or did he listen to this episode and go back in time?
I don't know. I think actually, because this actually came up in early discussions of this campaign that we're doing. Okay. It's like this was sort of a thing that was sort of planned.
So you stole the idea from him, is what you're saying?
I mean, possibly. Well, I mean, one of the things what was brought up at I think what's there is a JRPG that's coming up. It's like Ship It In or something like that.
Oh,
Sweek It In. I don't know. There is one like JRPG that has just like 100 characters or something ridiculous. I don't know.
I know Suikoden is famous for having a ton of characters.
I think that must be it. And it's super hard to find a copy of it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But
yeah, so it's definitely I don't want to say I stole the idea, but
maybe you got the idea from the same place Dave did.
Sure.
Brandon says, I'm from the South, so naturally sharecropping comes to mind. Okay.
Sharecropping.
There you go. And then Craig H says, I would have my character start a business. As he gets more magical items, he sells the ones he used to use but no longer needs. He could market the items as 100% tested. There you go. I like the idea of an adventurer owning a magic shop.
Sure.
Or just like an equipment shop. And I know in the Shackled City, there was a store you could go to that was run by an ex-adventurer.
Well, it's like, you get all these magical items that you end up never using because they're just sitting in your backpack. And then like you end the campaign, you're like, I have all these magic items I never use. I'm going to start up a shop and try to sell them to people.
Yeah. Over on Reddit, CGA Wolf says, well, I'm about to find out what my players do with it. Smiley face.
Ooh.
So there you go. Vincent Takeda says, we host the annual WizardCon, a meeting of mystical minds. There's a whole section set aside for the neighborhood of tiny huts and magnificent mansions that springs up on day one and disappears without a trace at the end. Kind of sounds like from Harry Potter, the Quidditch tournament, the Quidditch World Cup.
Oh.
Or something. Anyway. Lost Ranger 17 says, I would give them the opportunity to build on it. That could be a farm, keep, village, or really whatever they could think of. I mean, really, that's probably what I would do too. I would give the players the land and then they can do whatever they want, whatever they wanted to do. I would come up with rules for how it works.
Yeah.
Great Heart says, start designing a dungeon complete with traps and puzzles to store all the dungeon loot that any adventurer has and will collect over time. We'll call the dungeon the home of the Dragon's Horde.
Maybe.
00 Jiminy Cricket says, training grounds. We would develop a gauntlet to train ourselves and then accept junior adventurers to join. Flash forward a decade or two, and we are providing dedicated, smart, well-rounded parties to protect the material plane from otherworldly or cross-plane assailants. So there you go. I do like the idea of raising new adventurers, or I think a similar topic to this came up in the past where I think maybe Justin said that he would create a castle and then like send adventurers out to defend it or something like that. Like you basically become a quest giver.
Oh, right. Okay.
I think I don't remember exactly what that conversation
was. Or you become so powerful that you become the quest giver, and then it's like, I don't know, that like you then start playing the adventures that your character is sending out.
Yeah.
Like I really like the idea of having all these multiple characters to choose from and play and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It might complicate things, and like you get sort of that like open world, what do we do now feel?
Sure. Which we may cover on a future episode.
Yeah. So
over on Twitter, I am Carlos says he would sell it and use the money to buy a ship. That's what he really wants.
Oh.
So okay.
Yeah, all right.
Okay. That's a good answer. And then at Mel Radio says, my halfling would build a hut for Daddy, the Vistani's life she's ruined. It only seems fate by this point. Bless his cotton socks.
Okay.
There you go.
All right.
There you go.
A lot of backstory there.
Sure.
But I like it.
And over on Discord, we just got a couple. Deborah Soar says, did someone say new guild hall?
Right.
There you go. That's a good one. Adam B says, invest in an institute investigating paranormal occurrences, recording them for a giant archive on archaic tape recorders.
Oh.
And then Mason says, 2 words, Fight Club. There you go.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, that was last week's social media question. This coming week's social media question this is one that I actually got kind of from Brute Force and Ignorance. They, in the last few episodes, they do like a Q&A at the end of every episode now. And one of the questions was like, does the group have a leader? And if so, who is it?
Right.
And so that got me thinking, I don't know if any of the groups I've been in, I could ever really say had a leader.
Right.
So the question is, should adventuring parties have a leader? Why or why not?
Yeah. Like, I don't see a reason why there couldn't be a leader. Mm-hmm. But in my experience, there's never been like a leader of the group.
Yeah.
Maybe like in specific adventures, there would be like somebody who takes the lead.
Yeah. Maybe like this adventure deals with that person's backstory. So they're the one taking the lead.
Right. So yeah, they're going to have the most interaction with the NPCs for this adventure because they have some relation to that NPC or something like that.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's like, the person who, it's the barbarian because he's going to walk through the door first because whoever has the most hit points, like they're going to lead the way into the next room of the dungeon.
Yeah.
But they're not necessarily the leader.
Because there's always like, what's the marching order and stuff like that. There's always like the person that goes first in a marching order, but I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean they're the leader.
Yeah. And then there's the one who's like the one with the highest charisma score who does the most like diplomacy and stuff like that could be seen as the leader.
I don't think that leaders are very common in role-playing games.
Right.
Probably because, that would make one player feel like they are elevated above the others, and I don't think many people do that on purpose.
Yeah.
That being said, a lot of people complain about the group just kind of spinning their wheels and not really deciding what to do.
Right.
Maybe some groups could benefit from having a leader that they made the decision whether to open the door or not, so they open the door.
Yeah. Like there could be like an early on adventure where it's sort of like the players are becoming an official party in some way. Like some event happened that okay, you guys are on this quest to do this thing. You're now the Fellowship of the Ring or whatever.
Sure.
That sort of thing where it's okay, you guys are now a fellowship. You are a group. You have a cause. You're doing a thing. Mm-hmm. Who's the leader? Have an NPC ask which one of you is going to be the leader, and then they might be oh, obviously this person, or I should be the leader, and it could lead to some interesting inter-party conflict.
There you go. What if an NPC is hey, I have this gift basket I'm supposed to give to your leader. Which of you is the leader?
Yeah.
And then have the party fight over who's the leader.
Just sit back and laugh.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that could be interesting.
Yeah. I think when I was going to run the Mountain Witch, I actually set up something like that where a minion of the Mountain Witch shows up and is I have a gift to give to the leader, and then the party's supposed to fight over who is the leader.
Oh, that guy.
Or I'm supposed to give this to the most powerful among you, or the most skilled, and then they're oh, well, obviously that's me. Whoa. Who said that was you?
Wait a minute. Now wait a minute.
Anyway, so I think this is an interesting question. I'm interested to see what discussion is able to come out of it, if any.
Yeah.
So that'll do it for our questions. But before we close out today, we have another last little segment here that we usually go to. And so, Jeff, let's take a deep breath. Let's sit back. Let's remember those who have come before us. Maybe the leader who was unceremoniously taken down for walking into the room first or whatever.
Leonardo, no.
As we toss another log onto the funeral pyre. So this funeral pyre is it's a big funeral pyre here for us. It's not the longest we've had. It's not the length isn't the issue. It's the weight that this carries with us. This was submitted by Collins B via email, and he says he has a doozy of a funeral pyre for us. So strap in.
Okay.
Click. Kongu Straggler has been name dropped in 2 social media questions, 2 Dragon's Hoard items, and a funeral pyre story that killed 4 members.
Okay.
But that wasn't his funeral pyre story.
Right.
His funeral pyre story is right here.
Okay.
And this has an accompanying picture. I'll put it in the show notes, I guess, because it was just emailed to us. So after 4 years of play, Kongu had finally reached level 20.
Ooh.
He had defeated Emperor Dugard with his allies and saved the world. There was still a couple of months before we were going to start the next generation campaign, so we played some small quote-unquote DLC missions, tying up loose ends from the main campaign. I got cocky. I was level 20. Basically a god, right? Wrong. Kongu was separated from his allies and chose to fight instead of run. So right here is actually where the photo comes in for anybody who's not able to view it. It's a large battlefield, and it looks like the party is on one side, and then a whole bunch of bad guys, and then Kongu all by himself.
All the way, he's
all by himself, all the way on one end, surrounded by looks like zombies or skeletons or something.
Yeah.
Kongu was separated from his allies and chose to fight instead of run. He was surrounded and went down fighting. He was knocked unconscious by an old nemesis, an ancient shadow dragon that had escaped him before.
Ooh.
Then failed all 3 death saving throws.
Ugh.
Moral of the story, don't get cocky, kid, especially if you're a ranger.
Oh, no.
So, there you go. That was the epic tale of Kongu Straggler spanning multiple episodes of the podcast.
Sure.
So, I guess, hey, without further ado, let's raise a glass in memory of Kongu. Keep fighting the good fight, buddy. Clink. All right, that'll do it for today. To submit questions for us to discuss, items for the Dragon's Hoard, or stories for the Funeral Pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, links to media mentioned on the show, and running lists of questions and magic items, go to interpartyconflict.com. Join the discussion on social media. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/interpartyconflict, on Reddit at r/interpartyconflict, on our Interparty Discord, or on Twitter at InPartyConflict for our weekly social media questions. Your answers might end up on the show. Find us on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube, anywhere you download podcasts. Please rate, review, subscribe, or just tell a friend. If you'd like to support the show, check out the rewards at patreon.com/interpartyconflict. There's a few different tiers, so anything you can spare, even $1 a month, would go towards making the show better, and you'll get bonus content for it. Jeff, tell us about FriendQuest.
FriendQuest is a YouTube channel where we play video games.
Yes, and you're currently going through Dark Souls 3, correct?
Yep.
Yes. And speaking of video games, check out my side project, the Arcade Memories Podcast. If you'd like to submit your own childhood memories of going to the arcade, record them or write them to me at arcadememoriespodcast@gmail.com. And I've been collecting stories. I'm going to put out another episode of that in February. So
cool.
Keep an ear out. Also, head over to bit.ly/interpartyconflict to take a short survey about our show, what you like, what you don't like, etc. And just for taking it, you'll get 2 free printable board games, courtesy of Mary and Tom over at hollandspiel.com. And our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hackers RPG. So, Jeff, until next time,
stay warm.
There you go. Stay warm.